Stop wasting precious toddler energy in standby lanes at Disneyland. Here is your up-to-date 2025 Lightning Lane guide so you can skip those lines in Disneyland. At Jetstream Adventures, I help you swap meltdown-inducing logistics for carefree memory-making magic. I have tested every queue-cutting option at Disneyland with my own 4-year-old and 1-year-old, so you don't have to. First, let's break down what your options actually are to skip the line at Disneyland. Here's Lightning Lanes at a glance. First is the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. This is an add-on to your ticket per day. It allows you to skip the line by pre-scheduling on over 20 rides on Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure. It also includes PhotoPass as part of the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass service when you make the purchase, which is a really nice feature for Disneyland that's not included in Walt Disney World, just for comparison. There's then the Lightning Lane Single Pass, which, as the title alludes to, is for one specific ride. Those 2 rides that offer Lightning Lane Single Pass right now are Radiator Springs Racers in Disney California Adventure and Star Wars Rise of the Resistance in Disneyland Park. So if you're wanting to skip the line for those specific rides, you're needing to buy a Lightning Lane Single Pass for that. The next tier is the Lightning Lane Premier Pass. Now, with Lightning Lane Multi-Pass, there are several rules with how you can schedule rides, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But Lightning Lane Premier Pass eliminates all those rules. Any ride that offers Lightning Lane, you can get on at any time, once per day, including the single pass rides like Rise of the Resistance and Radiator Springs Racer. It does only work once per ride per day for the person who purchases Premier Pass, but you don't have to do any of the scheduling, any of the trying to coordinate what time is available with your schedule. There's no scheduling. Now, the highest tier of Skip the Line that is available is the VIP tour, also known as having a plaid. With the VIP tour, you have a private guide that will take you through either park. You will have unlimited Skip the Line access to any ride in the park. They will grab you snacks and drinks while you're on your ride, so you don't have to waste any time waiting in line. They can get you reserved viewing for any parades or nighttime specials, and the service is for up to 10 guests. So you pay a flat rate per hour, and you can include up to 10 guests in your tour. That is a service that does need to be scheduled ahead of time. Now, you'll notice for these 4 services, I did not include pricing because it does vary pretty widely by date and by demand. So I would recommend checking the website if you're interested in finding out the specific prices for your dates. But out of these 4 options, the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass is the most common, and it's also the most tricky. So let me go over 4 basic rules that you need to know with the Lightning Lanes. And as a disclaimer, these rules are completely different from the Walt Disney World Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. So if you are familiar at all with how Lightning Lanes work at Disney World, just kind of temporarily toss that out of your mind because it's just completely different. I'm not going to confuse you by going over the Walt Disney World rules if you are not familiar, but if you are, just compartmentalize, set those aside. They're completely different right now. The first rule you need to know is the park entry trigger. When you scan to get into the park, you are eligible to schedule your first Lightning Lane. When you scan into the park at the entrance, Disney California Adventure or Disneyland Park, it triggers your Lightning Lane to be able to schedule. This is a rule for everyone, regardless of if you're a Magic Key annual pass holder or if you're just buying tickets for the day, if you're staying at a Disneyland Resort hotel, or if you're staying off property. Everyone is only able to schedule their first Lightning Lane once they've scanned into the park. Now, that is granted that you have purchased Lightning Lane Multi-Pass ahead of time, which you can do when you purchase your tickets. If you have not purchased Lightning Lane Multi-Pass with your tickets, day of, you can purchase it. And if you purchase it once you're already in the parks, then you're able to start using it when you purchase it. So that's the first rule. Can't schedule until you're in the park. The second rule is when you can schedule your next ride. When you come into the park, you'll schedule your first lightning lane, and you can schedule your next lightning lane for the day after 3 possibilities have happened. One is that you use your lightning lane reservation, you ride the ride that you scheduled it for. After you scan into the ride, you can schedule your next lightning lane. The second possibility is that you miss your lightning lane reservation, and the hour window that you have for your reservation expires. You can schedule your next lightning lane once that time period has expired. Obviously, I don't recommend doing that, but know that that is available. The third option is that you schedule a lightning lane, but the return time for that ride is more than 2 hours in the future. In that case, after 2 hours have passed, you're able to schedule another lightning lane. So you'll hear in lightning lane strategy some people talking about stacking lightning lanes. This concept is referring to that 2 hour time frame rule by scheduling lightning lanes in the future and using them later in the day. So those are your options for scheduling the next lightning lane for the day. 1, after you've used it on a ride. 2, if the reservation is unused and the time frame expires. 3, after 2 hours have passed from scheduling a lightning lane that has yet to be used. Rule number 3 is in regard to park hopping. Because Disneyland Resort has a rule in place that you cannot park hop until after 11 a.m., Lightning Lane Multipass is not going to allow you to schedule a lightning lane in the opposite park of what you initially scanned into until after 11 a.m. You're able to schedule before 11 a.m., but you're not able to schedule a lightning lane return time until after 11 a.m. The fourth rule is that the Lightning Lane Multipass allows you to skip the line once per ride, per day, per person. Lightning Lane Multipass is an attachment on the park ticket, and you only need a park ticket for kids ages 3 and up. So if you have a younger child with you who does not have a park ticket, they do not need a Lightning Lane Multipass, and they do not need reservations. If you watch my video on my toddler guide to the Disneyland 70th celebration, you might have heard me mention that I always recommend rope dropping Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway because you are able to only use the Lightning Lane Multipass once per ride per day. And Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is so popular with my kids that sometimes once a day isn't enough. So we will also rope drop to take advantage of a short line. If your kids have a ride that they particularly love, once a day might not be enough for them. So you might want to think about getting in line during a not so busy time of day and then using Lightning Lane to be able to get into that ride more often. And if you are heading to Disneyland this summer, I do highly recommend you check out my toddler guide for the Disneyland 70th celebration. I'll link that here. So let's get into what specific rides Lightning Lane Multipass works for and what I'd recommend. I've listed them here on the screen for you along with the height requirements. You'll see that Buzz Lightyear, Haunted Mansion, It's a Small World, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and Roger Rabbit are the rides included with Lightning Lane Multipass that do not have a height requirement. So if you're bringing young toddlers, these are your rides that you're going to want to stick with and prioritize. If your kids are 32 inches in height, they are able to ride Autopia. 38 inches gets you into Millennium Falcon's Smuggler's Run. A 40-inch height gets you into the mountains. So Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Space Mountain, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and Star Tours. 42 inches is required for Matterhorn bobsleds, and 46 inches is required for Indiana Jones. Now, keep in mind that you are not required to make reservations for everyone in your party. And during nap time in the afternoon, if you have kids that can stroller nap in the parks, you may want to use that as parents as a time to take advantage of riding some of the bigger rides that the kids won't want to or won't be able to ride. When you have a party with kids who are not tall enough or are not wanting to ride a certain ride, you do have the rider swap service available, and you are able to do that with your Lightning Lane multi-pass or single pass as well. What that means is when you scan into a ride at your Lightning Lane, simply let the cast member at the gate know that you have 2 parents that are wanting to ride that ride and have Lightning Lane reservations. This can be especially useful because the Lightning Lane reservation return time is only an hour time frame, and if you're making 2 reservations for that same hour time frame, both parents might not be able to get through the ride in that hour time frame. So letting the cast member know that you're going to each ride the ride one at a time allows for the cast member to be able to accommodate you in case the second parent's Lightning Lane return time would expire. This especially comes in handy for rides like Rise of the Resistance, which is about 25 minutes total just to get through the ride experience. And then when you add on the little bit of line that you have even going through Lightning Lane, you'll probably want to alert the cast member as you're scanning in just to be safe. As far as what to start with, if you are starting your day or making your entire day Disneyland Park, I would recommend for an all-around family pick scheduling Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway first. Mickey and Minnie's does tend to book up quickly, and it's such a fun ride. You're going to want to make sure that you get that in the day. For a return time, I would recommend scheduling it around maybe like 9:30, 10 for a return time, and hitting all of those Fantasyland rides first thing in the morning that don't have Lightning Lane available. Most of the Fantasyland rides like Pinocchio, Snow White, Alice in Wonderland, Mad Tea Party, Casey Jr., the Storybook Land boats, Mr. Toad's, they don't have Lightning Lane available. So you'll want to rope drop those and get through them first thing in the morning. And then you can head right next door over to Toontown to hit Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Over on the Disney California Adventure side, you'll see that Web Slingers, Monsters Inc., Toy Story Midway Mania, and The Little Mermaid have no height requirement and are included in Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. Goofy Sky School and Grizzly River Run have a 42-inch height requirement. Soarin' has a 40-inch height requirement. Guardians of the Galaxy has a 44-inch height requirement, and Incredicoaster has a 48-inch height requirement. If you're starting your day in Disney California Adventure Park, I personally would recommend starting with Web Slingers as your first reservation. You can start the day in Avengers Campus, especially if you're getting a later start to your day and not rope dropping. Or you can rope drop Pixar Pier. None of the non-height requirement rides are included in Lightning Lane Multi-Pass except Toy Story Midway Mania. So you can go through all of those rides like Jesse's Critter Carousel, Emotional Whirlwind, get those out of the way, and then head over to Avengers Campus and get your Lightning Lane reservation time for then. For that reason, Toy Story Midway Mania could also be a good reservation to start with, but you might find that if you're rope dropping Pixar Pier, there isn't much of a line to begin with. So it just depends on how you want to start your day. I think if you have 2 days in your vacation when you're starting at Disney California Adventure, I would recommend doing Web Slingers as your first reservation for one day and Toy Story Midway Mania as the other day. If your little ones are not tall enough to ride, rides like Incredicoaster, Soarin', Guardians of the Galaxy are great to grab during nap time if your kids stroller nap. So here are my top Lightning Lane strategy tips that if you're going to take anything away from this video, I hope you take these. First, if you have Lightning Lane Multi-Pass, book your first Lightning Lane as soon as you scan into the park. Again, I recommend Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway if you're scanning into Disneyland Park, and Web Slingers if you're scanning into Disney California Adventure. If you're lucky enough that you have kids that stroller nap in the park, use that 1 to 2 hour time frame to get some grown-up rides in, like Indiana Jones over in Disneyland Park, Rise of the Resistance, or on the Disney California Adventure side, Incredicoaster and Guardians of the Galaxy. Remember to let the cast member know that you are doing rider swap so they can accommodate you. If you're comparing the cost and benefits to the Lightning Lane Premier versus the VIP tour service, remember to keep in mind that while Lightning Lane Premier Pass does save 30 to 40 minutes per ride, it does still require the walking throughout the park, the scheduling of mobile ordering or mealtime. So there is still some strategy that you're going to have to keep in mind. Versus the VIP tour, they can take you through back of house shortcuts. They can bring snacks and drinks to you rather than you finding what you want. And you have a cast member with you who can manage that rider swap for you. Last tip is that if you are using Lightning Lane Multipass, you get the PhotoPass included. So make sure that you use it. If you're doing a multi-day trip, at least one of the days, schedule your first Lightning Lane and then allow yourself a little bit of a leisurely morning in the park. Get some pictures with your PhotoPass in front of the castle, in front of the waterfall in Disney California Adventure. Make sure you're using that PhotoPass because it is included and it makes for great memories. One tip that I recommend is while family photos are super cute, at least once during your trip, get the kids out of the stroller, let them stand and have the photographer take pictures of just your kids. The photographer at the PhotoPass stop at the front of the park in Disneyland did that with my two kids, and the pictures are absolutely adorable. So that is your 2025 Disneyland Lightning Lane Crash Course. If you're not already, make sure you're following at Jetstream Adventures on Instagram and TikTok for all Disney hacks, parks, and cruising throughout the week. And make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss next week's episode. Bye!